Staying home felt like relief, not laziness, not fear, pure relief. The door closes behind you, your shoulders drop, your breath slows, and something inside you finally unclenches. Everyone else is going out. You chose this instead. And the strangest part, you chose right. I'm Tim. I dig into the peer-reviewed research most psychology channels never cite. And what your brain does when it craves solitude at home. That is not a personality quirk. That is documented neuroscience. Today we go inside the psychology of people who genuinely love staying home. What drives it, what it protects, and what it reveals about how your brain actually works. You are not broken. You are wired differently, and the science proves it. In 1967, psychologist Eysenck proposed something radical. Your brain has a fixed baseline arousal level. Some brains run hot, some brains run cool. If your brain runs hot by default, you do not need the world's stimulation to function. You already have enough. Crowds feel overwhelming. Loud spaces feel draining. But home feels calibrated, because home matches your internal baseline. Eysenck called this the cortical arousal theory of introversion. It is not shyness. It is not social anxiety. It is your brain regulating its own signal load. Here is where it gets stranger. Researchers at Harvard found introverted brains process dopamine differently than extroverted brains. Extroverts get a large dopamine reward from social stimulation. Your brain gets that reward from something quieter, from focus, from control over your environment, from being exactly where you chose to be. But dopamine is only half the story. There is something else happening inside you. Something most psychology videos never explain. In 2003, psychologist Elaine Aron published research on a trait she called sensory processing sensitivity. Roughly 15 to 20% of all humans carry it. Your nervous system does not just notice the world, it processes it deeper, more completely, more intensely. A crowded restaurant is not just loud. Your brain is mapping every conversation, every light flicker, every temperature shift. You are not being dramatic. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it was built to do. And when it has been doing that all day, home is not an escape. Home is a decompression chamber. It is where your nervous system finally stops working over time. Now here's the part nobody tells you. You have been reading this wrong your entire life. You assumed loving home meant something was missing. That normal people do not feel this way. But the research says the opposite. Studies from the University of Rochester, led by psychologist Richard Ryan, found that autonomy, the sense of freely choosing your own environment, is a core psychological need, not a preference, a need. When you choose to stay home, your brain is not retreating. It is asserting control. It is meeting a fundamental human requirement for psychological well-being. The counterintuitive reversal is this. The person canceling plans to stay home is not running away. That person is running towards something real. And there is one more layer, the default mode network. Your default mode network, the DMN, activates when you are not focused on external tasks, when you are daydreaming, reflecting, making meaning. Neuroscientist Marcus Rachel first mapped the DMN in 2001. His findings were dismissed initially because scientists assumed an inactive-looking brain was a resting brain. They were wrong. The DMN is not resting. It is doing your deepest work, processing memory, building identity, solving problems you did not know you were trying to solve. And it needs one thing to operate at full capacity: low external stimulation. In other words, it needs home. The brain that loves staying home is not avoiding life. It is building a more coherent internal life. Every hour alone is your DMN doing maintenance on who you are. But there is a shadow side, and the research is clear. There is a difference between choosing solitude and needing it to cope. Psychologists call this the distinction between restorative solitude and avoidant isolation. Restorative solitude leaves you energized, clearer, more ready for the world. Avoidant isolation leaves you more anxious, more disconnected, less able to tolerate even the idea of people. The question you have to ask is not whether you love home. The question is what home does to you afterward. If staying home makes you better at being human, more present when you do connect, that is your nervous system working exactly as designed. But if home has become the only place that feels safe, if even imagining leaving creates real dread, that is a different signal. That is your brain telling you something needs attention, not judgment. Attention. The research on introversion and sensory processing sensitivity from Aron and colleagues consistently shows that the most thriving version of a home-loving person is not isolated. They are intentionally selective. They do not avoid the world. They curate their exposure to it. And there is a name for what that looks like in practice. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called it optimal experience. Your brain performs at its peak when the challenge level matches your capacity. For people who love home, the world is often set to the wrong difficulty. Too much stimulation, too little control, too many people, too little quiet. Home is not where you hide. Home is where you recalibrate the dial. So here's what the science is actually telling you. Your love of staying home is not a flaw to fix. It is a neurological profile to understand. Your cortical arousal is higher. Your sensory processing runs deeper. Your dopamine reward system responds to autonomy and quiet. Your default mode network needs low stimulation to do its most important work. None of this is weakness. All of this is you. The reframe is simple. Stop explaining yourself to a world designed for a different brain type. Start designing your life around what your brain actually needs to thrive. Solitude is not antisocial. It is how your brain repairs and rebuilds itself. And every person who has ever felt guilty for choosing home over noise, the science is finally catching up to what you already knew. You were not wrong. You were just wired for a different kind of fullness. Most people will never understand this about you because they're wired for noise. You're wired for depth. And once you stop apologizing for that, everything changes. If this felt like someone finally explained your brain, you're exactly where you're supposed to be.